Good morning. The committee will please come to order. A quorum being present, this morning's meeting of the Committee on Small Business will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. I'm pleased to be here today with my good friend and colleague, Ranking Member Chabot, working on behalf of America's nearly 30 million small businesses. Small businesses are the cornerstone of our communities. When a Main Street business succeeds, we see real job creation and hard-earned dollars get reinvested back into our neighborhoods, which makes the towns and communities better places to live, work, and raise a family. To help small businesses succeed, the SBA offers a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem that offers free and low-cost counseling and training to small business owners across the country. Whether it is helping to create a business plan, navigate the procurement process, market a new product, or identify trade opportunities, the SBA, through its resource partners, offers a wide range of services. On average, this partnership helps more than 1 million small business owners every year. These programs have proven to be a great return on investment. For every dollar invested in women's business centers, or WBCs, $46 is returned to the economy. And for every federal dollar spent on small business development centers, or SBDCs, $2 is returned to the U.S. Treasury, nearly $3 to the states, and approximately $48 in new capital is generated. Studies also show that entrepreneurs that receive 3 hours of counseling and training have higher one-year survival rates than firms that receive less counseling. Simply put, the SBA entrepreneurial development programs offer real value to small business owners and taxpayers alike. Throughout this Congress, as the only committee dedicated to serve small businesses, we have been asking the small business community what support they need. Are these entrepreneurial development programs working effectively, and what can the committee do to make improvements? We have learned that more can be done to expand their reach, particularly to rural and traditionally underserved areas. We also heard that we must support the rapid growth of women-owned firms and do more to promote innovation and create jobs. We have taken these recommendations to heart and crafted 4 bipartisan bills to strengthen the counseling and training programs at SBA. The 4 bills the committee is considering today are H.R. 4406, the Small Business Development Centers Improvement Act of 2019, introduced by Mr. Golden and co-sponsored by Vice Ranking Member Radewagen. H.R. 4405, the Women's Business Centers Improvement Act of 2019, introduced by Ms. Davis and co-sponsored by Mr. Haggerty. H.R. 4407, the SCORE for Small Business Act of 2019, introduced by Mr. Hearn and co-sponsored by Ms. Craig. H.R. 4387, legislation to establish the Growth Accelerator Fund competition within the Small Business Administration, introduced by Mr. Espaillat and co-sponsored by Mr. Barderson. I'm proud to be lending my support for 4 bipartisan bills to improve SBA counseling programs and better serve America's innovators. As always, I want to thank the ranking member for collaborating on this package. I would also like to thank all our members, both Republican and Democrat, for all their efforts to improve SBA's entrepreneurial development programs. Your work today proves just how special this committee is because we put the needs of small businesses above all else. Finally, I would like to thank our hardworking committee staff who worked diligently on these bills, Ellen Harrington, Delia Barr, and Joe Hartz. I would now like to recognize our ranking member, Mr. Chabot, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for holding today's markup. In the interest of time, I'm going to give a quick summary of my opening statement and then submit the full statement for the record to save time. The first 3 bills, H.R. 4406, 05, and 07, reauthorize flagship SBA programs, establish new program-specific performance metrics, and modify reporting requirements to improve efficiency, transparency, and accountability. These bills will also set authorization funding at responsible levels and timeframes to ensure future Congresses can improve and amend these programs as necessary. H.R. 4406, the Small Business Development Centers Improvement Act of 2019, modernizes the SBDC program. It also includes measures to prevent duplication and overlap of entrepreneurial development assistance provided by the SBA. I want to thank Mr. Golden and Ms. Radewagen for their hard work on this legislation and working in a bipartisan manner. H.R. 4405, the Women's Business Centers Improvement Act of 2019, raises the initial 5-year grant amount and indexes it for inflation. With the award increase comes a new governing body, the Women's Business Center Association, which will facilitate accreditation and standardization of WBCs. I'd like to thank Ms. Davids and Mr. Hagedorn for their leadership on this bill. H.R. 4407, the SCORE for Small Business Act of 2019, establishes new compliance and oversight requirements to protect taxpayer dollars and sets new outcome-based performance goals to ensure the program meets the SBA's standards and congressional intent. I want to thank Mr. Hearn and Ms. Craig for their hard work on this bill. The fourth and final bill we are considering is H.R. 4387, which codifies the SBA's Growth Accelerator Fund competition. I'm proud to say that 3 Cincinnati organizations have won a $50,000 prize from this fund: the Brandery, First Batch, and Mortar. As an authorized program rather than an SBA administrator initiative, the competition will now be subject to greater congressional oversight, and that's a good thing. Thank you to Mr. Espaillat and Mr. Balderson for their leadership on this bill. Each bill has been informed by oversight findings, program feedback, and agency transparency. Thank you to our members on both sides of the aisle, again, for working in a bipartisan manner here. They've all taken leadership roles in sponsoring and co-sponsoring these bills. We're very appreciative of that. I look forward to working with each of them, as I know Chairwoman Velasquez does as well, and we're going to continue to pass in this committee good legislation. I thank the Chairwoman for that and yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. Before we get into the individual bills, are there any members present who seek recognition for the purposes of making an opening statement? Seeing none, we will move to consideration of H.R. 4406, the Small Business Development Centers Improvement Act, introduced by Mr. Golden and co-sponsored by Ms. Radewagen, which modernizes and strengthens the SBDC network. I will now like to recognize the bill sponsor, the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Golden, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given that small business development centers, or SBDCs, are the largest resource partner to SBA, it's particularly important for this committee to keep the program up to date and performing at a high level for small businesses throughout the country. In Maine, the state's lead SBDC runs 11 outreach locations in my district in partnership with regional economic development entities, enabling small businesses in Maine's rural communities to access valuable assistance. While the centers have had many successes, we've learned lessons about ways to improve the program in the years since it was last reauthorized in 2004. That's why I'm excited to lead this bill alongside Vice Ranking Member Radewagen to reauthorize the program. The Small Business Development Centers Improvement Act of 2019 will make a number of positive changes to improve oversight, better enable SBDCs to partner with other organizations, bolster the center accreditation process, and improve the voice of SBDCs in setting the program's direction. I'm particularly glad that the bill will help broaden rural small business access to SBDC assistance by clarifying that centers are allowed to market and advertise their services. Rural access to SBA resources is a key issue for my district. This change is going to help address this need. Finally, the bill will authorize appropriations at the level of $175 million for fiscal years 2020 through 2023, reaffirming Congress's commitment to this program. I'd like to thank the Chairwoman, the Ranking Member, and their staff for forging a bipartisan path forward on the reauthorization of this important program. And I would also like to thank Vice Ranking Member Radewagen for co-leading this bill with me, as well as Mr. Hagedorn and Mr. Evans for joining as co-sponsors. To conclude, I would ask unanimous consent that a letter of support for H.R. 4406 from America's SBDCs be entered into the record, and I yield back.
Without objection, so order. The gentleman yields back. Are there any other member who wish to be recognized for a statement on H.R. 4406?
Thank you, Madam
The
Chairwoman.
gentlelady from American Samoa is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Ranking Member Shabbat. I want to add my support for H.R. 4406, the Small Business Development Centers Improvements Act. Small Business Development Centers are the organizations that make sure our small businesses get help at the local level. SBDCs help entrepreneurs to grow, create jobs, and ultimately succeed. There are more than 1,000 SBDCs with locations in every state and territory, including in my home of American Samoa. H.R. 4406 will help more small businesses to get to that goal of economic success, which in turn benefits local communities and our nation's economy. Thank you to Mr. Golden for working with me on this legislation. I ask that we support this bill, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. And now I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Shabbat.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'll be brief. I want to thank the Chairwoman Vasquez and Mr. Golden and Ms. Rodawagon for offering this bill. This legislation will streamline SBA and SBDC processes and reduce programmatic duplication to maximize the program's impact on America's small businesses. I urge my colleagues to support it and yield back.
The gentleman yields back. And now I would like to offer my strong support to this bill, and I want to really thank both members, Mr. Golden and Wagon, for working in a bipartisan bill to produce a bill that really addresses the needs and the changes that are happening on the SBDCs. As we all know, they are the largest resource partner of the SBA with nearly 1,000 centers throughout the country. And over the years, Congress has asked them to take on additional responsibilities, ranging from cybersecurity to export promotion. Increasing the authorization level to $175 million will allow the program to grow and reach more American entrepreneurs. So I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. If there is no further discussion, the committee will move to consideration of H.R. 4406. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4406, the Small Business Development Centers.
Without
Improvement.
objection, H.R. 4406 is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Are there any members who wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4406. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4406 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4406 to the House. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4406 is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation, make other necessary technical corrections, and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall also be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental dissenting and minority views. Our second bill today is H.R. 4405, the Women's Business Centers Improvements Act of 2019, introduced by Ms. Davids and co-sponsored by Mr. Hagedorn. The bill will modernize and strengthen the women's business centers. I would now like to recognize the gentlelady from Kansas, Ms. David, the sponsor of the bill, for an opening statement on H.R. 4405.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm glad the committee is considering this bill today, the Women's Business Center Improvements Act of 2019. Women's business centers provide a full range of counseling and training services for small businesses, primarily owned by women. This bipartisan bill, which I introduced with Representative Hagedorn, will reauthorize women's business centers for 4 years, increase the authorization level to $31.5 million, and increase the cap on individual center grants for the first time since the program began in 1988. Increasing the cap on center grants will allow centers across the country to expand their services and outreach. A great example of the possibilities for WBCs once the caps on individual center grants are increased is the Kansas City Women's Business Center, located in Fairway, Kansas, in the district that I now represent. The Kansas City Women's Business Center serves women business owners in Kansas City on both sides of the state line and the entire state of Kansas. The Kansas City Women's Business Center already serves over 600 clients annually through business trainings, workshops, counseling, and access to capital programs. With increased funding, the Kansas City Women's Business Center can even better expand their counseling and outreach across a larger geographic region. In order to ensure continued excellence in the centers across the country, this legislation also establishes an accreditation program run by the Association of Women's Business Centers. At this time, I'd like to enter into the record a letter of support for this legislation from Corinne Hodges, the CEO of the Association of Women's Business Centers. I look forward to providing our women's business centers across the country with increased funding for the incredible work they do, and thank you for considering this legislation.
Without objection to order. Are there any other member who wish to be recognized for a statement on H.R. 4405? Mr. Hagedorn is not here.
Yeah.
Would you?
I'll wait till my time, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Is
All right,
he on
all right,
his
I'll
way?
take it now. Madam Chair? Mr. Hagedorn is not able to be here, so I'll speak very briefly. I want to thank yourself. I want to thank Ms. Davids and Mr. Hagedorn for their leadership on this bill, H.R. 4405. Will bring long overdue modernizations to the WBC program. I urge all my colleagues, both sides of the aisle, to support it, and I yield back.
the gentleman yields back. And now I would like to recognize myself in support of this legislation. This legislation that we are considering today will increase the authorization level to $31.5 million and lift the cap on individual center grants to $300,000, allowing more established centers to expand their reach to more women entrepreneurs, particularly the socially and economically disadvantaged. Women are the fastest growing sector of entrepreneurs, and as more women establish themselves as business owners, these centers are critical in addressing the whole range of women's entrepreneurial needs. H.R. 4405 makes key changes to the program, enabling the WBCs to serve more of America's 12.3 million women-owned small businesses. So I want to thank Ms. Davids and Mr. Hagedorn for your collaboration, and I urge my colleagues to support the bill. If there is no further discussion, the committee will move on to consideration of H.R. 4405. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4405, Women's
Without
Business.
objection, H.R. 4405 is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Does anyone wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4405. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4405 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4405 to the House. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. H.R. 4405 is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation, make other necessary technical corrections, and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall also be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental, dissenting, and minority views. The next bill for consideration today is H.R. 4407, the SCORE for Small Business Act of 2019, introduced by Mr. Hearn and co-sponsored by Ms. Craig. This legislation will restore integrity to the SCORE program and ensure that the valuable business mentoring and training programs continue to serve America's small business owners. I would like now to recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As you all may know, SCORE is a nonprofit organization composed of active or retired business executives who act as mentors for entrepreneurs. SCORE volunteers provide face-to-face counseling on a whole host of business issues: business planning, budgeting, marketing, and financing, all at no charge to entrepreneurs. For over 50 years, SCORE has helped over 11 million entrepreneurs, and today, SCORE has over 300 chapters and more than 10,000 volunteers. This includes the Tulsa chapter, which is located in my district and currently has over 40 volunteers. My bill, H.R. 4407, would help to continue this success by reauthorizing the program and by adding new program safeguards, data standards, and reporting requirements. These provisions will further increase the program's integrity and help SCORE to assist even more small firms, and they are all supported by SCORE. To emphasize this support, I ask for unanimous consent, Madam Chairwoman, to add their support letter to the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I'd like to also thank the gentlelady from Minnesota, Ms. Craig, thank you, for being an original co-sponsor on this important legislation, and the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Hagedorn, for co-sponsoring this legislation as well. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on H.R. 4407? The gentlelady from Minnesota, Ms. Craig, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you to Congressman Hearn for your work on this bill. I'm proud to co-sponsor H.R. 4407, bipartisan legislation that will ensure the SCORE program can continue to provide important business and technical assistance to existing and emerging small business owners nationwide while ensuring the best use of taxpayer dollars. Madam Chairwoman, as we all know, small businesses are the economic engines of our communities. From the delicious coffee at Amore Coffee in West St. Paul to the outdoor apparel at Storm Creek in Hastings. Each small business starts with an idea, and it's the resources like a robust mentorship program that can help turn ideas into thriving businesses that sustain families, provide jobs, and bring a sense of community to our neighborhoods. SCORE volunteers are an important part of that entrepreneurial process and have helped launch thousands, tens of thousands of new businesses over the past 2 years. But as a recent audit of the Entrepreneurial Development Program found, SCORE could be re-administered more efficiently and ultimately better serve rural areas, disadvantaged communities, and traditionally underserved communities. Simply put, that is what this bill does. It incorporates many of the Inspector General's findings to strengthen SCORE and restores integrity, accounting, and performance to the program. By including these safeguards, the legislation would ensure SBA is a good agent of government funds, and the counseling and training program is operating effectively and efficiently for the 30 million small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs throughout the country. I know that small businesses in my district will benefit from an SBA and a SCORE program that runs efficiently and effectively. And so again, I thank the chairwoman for advancing this bill today, and I urge my colleagues to support. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also like to thank Mr. Hearn and Ms. Craig, both of whom have experience in organizational management, for their work on this legislation. I'm confident that the provisions in this bill will improve the SBA's oversight and congressional oversight of the SCORE program and support reform efforts within the SCORE Association. So I urge all my colleagues to support it and yield back.
The gentleman yields back. And I just would like to add, I want to thank both of the members for working in a bipartisan way to produce legislation that is going to make a significant contribution to small businesses, and particularly in corresponding to the IG's finding that were particularly troubling, and this legislation takes strong steps to restore accounting, integrity, and performance to the program. I also would like to add that I'm pleased that the new leadership at SCORE has taken steps to centralize the accounting system. And with that, I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. If there is no further discussion, the committee will move on to consideration of H.R. 4407. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4407, the SCORE for small
Without
business.
objection, H.R. 4407 is considered as read and, as is customary for committee practice, open for amendment at any point. Does anyone wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4407. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4407 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4407 to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. H.R. 4407 is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation, make other necessary technical corrections, and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall also be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplementing, dissenting, and minority views. The next bill is H.R. 4387, legislation to establish the Growth Accelerator Fund competition within SBA. This bipartisan legislation was authored by Mr. Espaillat and co-sponsored by Mr. Balderson. I would like to now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Espaillat, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair Velasquez and Ranking Member Chabot for convening this markup session. I want to particularly thank the chairwoman for helping move this piece of legislation. All roads lead to Miss Velasquez's district, and not Rome. I want to thank my colleague, Congressman Balderson of Ohio, for working with me on this partisan legislation. One of the most widely utilized tools is the Small Business Administration employs to grow and support small businesses is the Growth Accelerator Fund competition. This program has had the support of bipartisan administrations, has reached small businesses in over now 40 states. Importantly, this creates a pipeline of talented entrepreneurs, especially women and minorities, to grow and succeed. Last week, this committee had a hearing on SBA programs focused on spurring innovation and discussed the small business innovation research and small business technology transfer programs that are a proving ground for success. The SBIR and the STTR programs work with small businesses in the high-demand fields of new and innovative technologies. According to the SBA, since this Growth Accelerator Fund competition began in 2014, the first 50 awardees have led directly to almost 1,500 companies across the country. This means more investment in small businesses, a number of new opportunities leading to more jobs and higher salary. Again, let me thank Congresswoman Velasquez. Helping small businesses and prioritizing women-owned, veteran-owned, and socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses has been a priority of mine and of this committee. I thank you, Chairman Velasquez and Ranking Member Chabot, for your leadership in support of this legislation, and urge my colleagues to support this bill. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Are there any other member who wish to be recognized for a statement on H.R. 4387? Mr. Balderson, you will be recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing my colleague, Congressman Espaillat, for bringing this up today. And I'm very grateful to work with his office and to work with him on this bipartisan piece of legislation. The SBA's Growth Accelerator Fund competition was designed to support small business job creation by giving early-stage entrepreneurs opportunities to immerse themselves in intense learning. Accelerators can provide founders of early-stage companies with education, mentorship, financing, cohort-based training, and technical assistance. In the SBA's Growth Accelerator Fund competition program, accelerators, incubators, co-working startup companies, and other entrepreneurial models compete for grants of $50,000 each. In 2019, the competition focused on accelerators that work with high-tech entrepreneurs who are potential SBIR or STTR program applicants. Taken together, these programs aim to increase the number of small businesses in the high-tech segment of our economy, as well as raise their presence in federal research and development efforts. That's a win-win for both the private and public sectors by creating jobs, growing companies, and providing solutions to complex problems. I again want to thank my colleague, Congressman Espaillat, and Madam Chair, and also Ranking Member Chabot, and I would urge all of you to support this legislation. I yield back.
I'm sorry. The gentleman yields back. Thank you, sir. And now I recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you. I want to thank Mr. Espaillat and Mr. Balderson for offering this bill to codify the SBA's Growth Accelerator Fund competition. The competition has proven successful over the past 5 years, and I expect that will continue for the next 4 fiscal years. I urge my colleagues to support this, and again, want to thank them for working together in a bipartisan manner to make this happen. Yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Thank you, Mr. Chabot. And now I recognize myself briefly. This is one of the most important and innovative programs under SBA. The funds of the Growth Accelerator competition for this nation's most innovative, diverse, and promising small business accelerators and incubators. The monetary prizes of $50,000 to each of the winners go a long way towards supporting the development of accelerators and incubators in regions of the country where there are fewer sources of capital. It also has a proven record of providing investment in women and minority entrepreneurs. This bill will continue that commitment of investment in the next generation of American entrepreneurs, promote innovation, and increase jobs. I urge my colleagues to support the measure. If there is no further discussion, the committee moves to consideration of H.R. 4387. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4387, legislation
Without
to
objection,
establish.
H.R. 4387 is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Does anyone wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4387. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4387 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4387 to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4387 is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and make other necessary technical corrections and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall also be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental dissenting and minority views. So I thank all the members for their participation today and congratulate all the members for the legislation that you sponsor. If there is no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.